If you want to take your lower thirds in Ecamm Live from something like this to something like this, then watch this video. Hi, Gary Cruz with AmazeStudios.com here, and I do videos on live streaming and more recently, Ecamm Live tips. So today I'm going to show you how to do what I just created with this lower thirds. So I've got my text over here so I can easily change it, and I've got this movie that comes right in. And you notice that there's a sound that comes in separately because if I was to drag that element in with sound, it will just play as a normal video and not play over this with transparency. All right, so how do I do this? Well, there's a couple things you're going to need. If someone sends you a Photoshop file of a lower thirds and you export as a PNG, it's going to just look like this, right? So I've got this PNG here. It's transparent, got some overlay. It's pretty nice. But if you want to take it to the next level, you're going to have to create a movie out of that. And I created that with Keynote. So let's go ahead and start from the beginning. I'll go ahead and just delete these. All right, so now they're gone. You can see here that I've got Keynote open, and this is actually the end result that we're going to create. So let's go ahead and play that here. Got the lower bar animating and the lens popping up, bouncing on the floor, and the Amaze Studios with the lens flare. All right, so we'll go ahead and create a new slide, a blank slide, and we'll delete that. All right, so we got Keynote ready. So the next thing we need to do is get Photoshop ready. So let's go ahead and open up the PSD file. And let's say if someone sent this to you, if you export this now, you can go ahead and do that as a PNG and you'll see the second one that we had earlier. So let's go and export this as a PNG. Oh, before I do that, let's go ahead and delete all the assets I don't need here. So I've got a PNG. I need the PSD. We're going to recreate this movie, throw that in the trash. And we're going to create the sound. I'll throw that in the trash. And we don't need that sound. Let's go ahead and take this Photoshop file, go to export, export as PNG. And we'll put that on my desktop as lower thirds Amaze Studios PNG. Go ahead and export it. Then we'll go over to Ecamm Live. And as soon as I drag that over, it's a basic PNG that I can turn on and off. But we want to take that to the next level. We want to animate it. So let's go ahead and in order to do that, I want to go ahead and crop only just the logo and the gradient bar and the lens. In Photoshop, we'll go to Image, Trim, and we'll trim away all the transparent pixels. The only reason why we do that is because if we bring these elements into Keynote, all the animations will go over the full frame of this 1920 by 1080 image. So now we just want the lower thirds. And then we're going to have to save these as separate elements. I've done that here. Let's go ahead and remove these. So I'm going to save them as a logo, a gradient, and a lens. Let's go ahead and delete those so we can use that from the beginning. And I'll leave those sounds. These are the sounds that I picked. I've got this boing, a camera pop, and a zing. Back to Photoshop. Now what we want to do is export each of these elements. So I've deselected the lens and the Amaze Studios logo. I've got my gradient here. Go to File and Export as PNG. PNG allows this transparency. So your background or your image that was provided to you or that you've created has to have a transparent background. So let's go to L3 Elements Bottom, and I'll put that in that folder. Okay, so now we just have the gradient. Next up is we'll hide that gradient and take the logo copy. You can see it has a little bit of a drop shadow. Then I'll go to File, Oops. Let me just make sure I got that properly. So I'm going to rename this as the bar, because I'm going to have 3 different layers. So now I've got the Amaze logo, file, export, quick export as PNG. And then I'm going to call this logo, Amaze logo. And then we have the lens element. Go to file, export, PNG, and we'll call this lens. Save. All right, now we're done with Photoshop. I'm going to go ahead and quit that. Now we'll go into Keynote and we'll go ahead and import each of those elements. So we're going to go Insert, Choose, and let's go ahead and import the bar first. And then we'll insert the lens. And then we'll insert the logo. Now press Command A to select all of them. And we want to arrange them so that they're aligned together. So let's go ahead and align them vertically, aligned center, and align middle. Now they're all aligned. So grab these and just put it where you think would look good for a lower thirds. And that looks good right about there. Okay, so you can see that in Keynote, we're in a 16:9 format. And now we want to animate each of these elements. So let's click on the bar. And in Keynote, there's an animate button. So click on animate, and we want to build an effect. There's some really cool effects here, but the one that I used, I think, is called Fade and Move. Yeah, that's it. That looks good. So click on that. The next thing we want to animate is the lens. So I've got this lens selected. Click on Add an Effect. There we go. So drop, and then with the Amaze Studios logo selected. Here's a thing that you need to take into account. So when you select the element, you'll see that the animation has been selected. So we've got that for the bar, but I didn't apply it to the lens because I just previewed it. So go ahead and click on Add an Effect. And if you click outside of that, it's not going to apply it. So click on Drop. And now it's applied that animation. And then with Amaze Studio selected, we'll add an effect. And I think this one was lens flare. So let's preview that. And then we'll apply the lens flare. Now we want to go ahead and put that in a build order because right now it's on click. So with the lens, if I just click on that, I'm going to drag that up right below gradient. And I want to build it with 1 and put a delay of, I think, 0.8. Let's try that. 0.8 seconds. Let's preview that. Okay, that looks good. And then with the logo, I'll also drag it in with that. And I want to do it after build 2, and I'll put 0 delay. And let's take a look at that. Got the bounce, and then we've got the logo. Let's do that with this out of the way so we can see it. Bounce, then logo. So we'll go to File. Oh, and before we exit out of this, we want to make sure that on the format, we click on the background here, we have no fill. Because if we do the color fill, here's what's going to happen. So if we go to export to, there's a couple of mistakes that happen. People, when they export a movie, they might just export this. And this is the same thing as having the fill. If we go to next, and then we'll put this on my desktop, we'll just call this test and export that. We think our animation is great and exports this. And then if we drag this right in here, it's going to replace the whole thing, right? And we don't want that. I mean, we might, but we're not going to have any of the transparency. So let's go ahead and undo that. Let's see, scene. Can I undo? Undo show overlay. Okay, I'll just go ahead and just add a new scene here. And just replace this. And delete this one. So we're starting from scratch. That's an example of what not to do. And let's go ahead and do no fill and go to File, Movie. Let's see, File, Export, Movie. And the important thing is to go to Custom. And I like doing it 1080, 1920 by 1080. Because I'd rather not have Ecamm Live do additional scaling, which is adding additional processing. So I figured if I just leave it at that and no scaling is involved, it's a little easier on the processor. It doesn't really take up much space. So let's do Apple ProRes 4444, and we'll export with transparent backgrounds, which we did because we have no fill here. Because it says here, applies only when slide background is set to no fill or has transparency, which this does. So let's export this, and we'll put that on my desktop as L3 Amaze Studios. All right. And let's export that. Goes pretty quickly. Now we'll go back over here and drag that Amaze Studios movie right on top. And there we go. We have an animated lower thirds. But wait a minute, where's the sound? Now that's going to take an additional layer. And this is where Apple Motion comes into play. Apple Motion is on the Apple Store. So if we go to Apple and the App Store and look for Apple Motion, I already have it, but I think it's $49. Adding sound is a lot easier in Final Cut Pro. Some people just don't want to spend $200 for Final Cut Pro if you don't already have it. But if you already have it, I would recommend doing this in Final Cut Pro. I'll show you how to do it in Apple Motion because $50 is easier to swallow than $200. So let's go ahead and open Apple Motion. Close this out. I don't know if you can hear, but my fan is starting to chug away. And we'll just select Apple Motion Project, Broadcast 1080. That's all fine. I'll just select all the defaults and click on Open. Now you're presented with this canvas here. And all we want to do is go ahead and import the movie that we've selected or exported, which is this, and import. And if we play it right here, it'll play in the timeline. Okay. All right, so now we want to add some sound to this. So let's go ahead and go to where the bar is going to start, which is about right here. And I'll go ahead and import the sound that I've selected. So we'll go to import. This took me a while to do, but in order to make this video a little more concise, I've read ahead and browsed through hundreds of sounds to find just these 4 that we're going to use, or just 3. So first we're going to start with, oh man, I deleted it. Oh, it's in my trash. Let's just grab it out of my trash here. Where is the slides? I think this is it. Yes. So let me put that back on my desktop. Thank goodness for the recycle bin, and put this on my elements bottom. All right. Let's see. Where did it go? There it is. So I'm going to import this. This is going to be the sound for my bar. And you can see that this green line represents the sound. So I'm going to put this where the bar actually starts, which is about right here. So let's preview that. Okay, that went by pretty quickly. Okay. I'm not going to make this perfect. It's just for a demo. And then the bounce noise. So we've got this bounce that starts about right there. I'm going to go ahead and import the other sound, which is this boing. Let me preview it. Okay. Import that. And I'll just align this boing. So let me grab it. All right, I'm not sure why I couldn't grab the boing sound earlier, but I saved it, quit out of motion, and came back in. That always seems to help with anything. Just quit and restart, right? So let's go ahead and move this boing right over here. And let's go ahead and preview this. All right, so we got the boing. And I also want a little camera sound, so we'll just do that around the same time. Let's see here. There we go. And go to File, Import. And I'll get the little camera pop here. Import that. And then also drag this around the same time. And let's go and preview that. Now the zing was a little too loud. I'm sorry, the boing was a little too loud. So let's go ahead and just reduce that a little bit. Try that one more time. And the last thing I want is this little lens flare to have a sound too, right there. So it starts about right here. And go to File, Import. And where's that sound? It's this zing. All right. And we'll put that zing right over here. All right. Let's just preview this whole thing. All right, perfect. All right, so like I said before, if I was to export this now, it's just going to be a movie that plays and will show up in picture-in-picture. So all we did here was just to align the sounds to the video, and all we're going to use Motion for is to export that sound. So we go to File, Share, Export Audio, and we've got this L3 sound because I named this motion project L3 sound. Take a look at the settings. I'll select the audio format as AIFF and leave everything else. This is all just for images anyway, or video. And so I'll export this to my desktop as L3 sound. All right, let's get motion out of the way. It should be exported. And here's L3 sound. We can preview it. Okay, here we go. Whoa, okay. And that's what we wanted. Now, if we go ahead and let me add another scene here, put this above so we can see it transition in. We'll just call this plane. And select this and move this one below. Make sure this is selected. And there's the animation, but there's no sound. Now let's go ahead and grab this sound and put it on top of this. So if we go back to Plane Me and then click on the Sony A6400 with the sound and the animated lower thirds. Now I think my processor is struggling a bit because I have a couple applications open. Let's go and quit this. Quit motion. And let's go and quit Keynote. And I'm not going to save that. Let's go and delete that. And let's just take a look at what's going on here. So if you click on Command Space and do Activity Monitor, we can see what's going on here. And we go by CPU time. ScreenFlow Recorder is taking up a lot of processor. So apparently me recording the screen is affecting the performance of Ecamm Live. You can see Ecamm Live is only taking about 20% of the CPU. So let's quit this. And I'll play this one more time. Go back to Plane Me. And then Hi, Gary Cruz here, and I'm here to show you this tutorial. So normally that would play without any hiccups, but that's how you can do an animated lower thirds with sound. So if this was helpful for you, hit that like button so people can definitely see this, share this on your different forums, and definitely consider subscribing on the way out. Thanks for watching.